What do you want 50 years from now, history to say about Kamala Harris?
I hope that, and I really do work that my life will have proven to have been a life that is about fighting for the people.
As with any presidential candidate, Kamala Harris did do some interviews on the campaign trail. You just watched a clip of her interview with Al Sharpton. What I didn't expect, though, was that she was paying prior to the interviews being conducted. Either the production companies associated with the host that was interviewing her would get paid, or in the case of Al Sharpton, her campaign made two $250,000 donations in September and October to the National Action Network, which is the nonprofit that Al Sharpton runs. All right, so he wasn't the only one. The campaign also gave $350,000 to New Vision Media on September 9th, which is run by Roland Martin. Now, Martin interviewed Harris on his show back in October for about 30 minutes. And Martin did confirm that he did receive that money, but that money was for advertisement. And then he added this in typical Roland Martin fashion: it should have been a hell of a lot more. More should have been spent on Black-owned media. Well, Roland, I'm here to give you the good news, because she did spend more on Black media, just not you. Because when it came to her interview with Oprah, we had previously heard that she had spent, or her campaign, I should say, had spent $1 million paying Harpo Productions, which is Oprah's production company. But later, the filings indicated that a lot more was spent, and this is according to the filings obtained by the New York Times. The Harris campaign spent $2.5 million on that interview, okay? Yeah. And Winfrey, by the way, clarified on Instagram that she was not paid a dime for the event. The money actually went toward the staffing and the lighting and all of the other equipment that was necessary for the interview. She says, quote, "For the live streaming event in September, my production company, Harpo, was asked to bring in set design, lights, camera, crew, producers, and every other item necessary, including the benches and the chairs we sat on to put on a live production. I did not take any personal fee. However, the people who worked on that production needed to be paid and were. End of story."
No, not end of story.
So, okay, I'm gonna let you jump in, because look, the way I see it is there are news shows that typically interview candidates, right? So when Donald Trump went on Rogan, he didn't give Rogan money ahead of time. At least as far as we know, the Trump campaign did not do that. That's why it's referred to as earned media. You know, that 3-hour sit down conversation wasn't something that he had to spend any campaign money on. But obviously it paid some pretty handsome dividends, considering the fact that Joe Rogan has a massive audience and that podcast episode did really well numbers wise. And so I don't know why Harris didn't go in that direction. I'm not saying she had to do Joe Rogan's show, but I'm saying there are other shows. Like, you don't need to pay for their production, because they have a production already. They do a daily show or a weekly show. You could have gone on those shows instead.
Yeah, but they didn't want to. They only wanted to go on the shows that they bribed. So look, let me be clear. First off, Roland is not entirely wrong. You could do ads in shows and then go on the shows. In fact, that's what they do with mainstream media. They do tons of ads on NBC, CNN, Fox News, etc., and then they get interviewed by those. By the way, that's also why cable news is a bunch of ass kissers, because one of their top clients are the politicians themselves. So that's why they're always like, oh, the politicians are having an honest debate. Oh my God, their donor money doesn't affect them at all. They're honorable people, right? Because they don't want to offend one of their top advertisers. So that's a different issue and an interesting issue, and one we talk about all the time. So if Roland says that it went to ads, it went to ads. Okay, I trust him on that. And to me, that's a little bit of a different category, okay? But first, Al Sharpton, you pay a nonprofit, and then the guy interviews you on his media. Is that media that what he does? And then he gives you the biggest softball interview that anybody's ever seen after you were bribed. I mean, after you were given $250,000 for your nonprofit.
No, $500,000, $250,000 on 2 different occasions.
Oh yeah, okay. So look, Al Sharpton's been doing this type of scam for decades. But now that he's inside the Democratic Party, there's just this enormous Al Sharpton protection complex, okay? Oh, you can't say that about Al Sharpton. Oh, come on, man. He's been asking corporations and politicians, et cetera, for money for his nonprofits. And then he comes out and goes, now they are good people and not racist anymore, now that they have given me money, including Comcast, by the way, you should look into that. Okay, so then you go to Oprah. We broke down that interview for you guys here. It was a celebrity fest and it was counterproductive. And look, Oprah did the best she could. Kamala's answers were terrible, so she would like encourage her. She would give her like a big intro, like it would be great if you said this.
She was helping her answer the questions after asking the questions.
Both before and after, she's coaching the bejesus out of Kamala Harris because she needed the coaching. Do I think Oprah took money? No, she doesn't need the money.
No, she's so rich.
Right.
Like I don't think that she did it for the money. But I believe Oprah in regard to the production company. Oprah doesn't do a daily talk show anymore, so it makes sense in wanting to pay a crew and get all the equipment necessary to do it.
No, but that's why I said it's not the end of the story. Look, I can get you a crew to do that, what, Skip, 10%, 5%, 2% of the money, right? I mean, they wanted a celebrity spectacular. I watched it, if you see it, there's like hundreds and hundreds of screens on there and giant, I mean, it was, and none of it felt like the working man, right? None of it felt like you were gonna fight for women's rights in an organic way, et cetera.
That's a good point. I didn't think about how the star-studded events, like the way that they came across to ordinary voters.
It came across terrible. Yeah. And Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts and every other celebrity. All the rich elite celebrities support Kamala Harris. I'm like, make it stop, make it stop. I mean, I didn't know that she was paying $2.5 million for that. Okay, so guys, the reason why she is overall paying in different ways, whether it's ads to money to nonprofits, money to stats, et cetera, the reason why she's paying for all this earned media is because she couldn't do earned media. Earned media is you come on a show, it could be any show, but let's use us as an example. Come on the Young Turks and you answer the goddamn questions. That's it, period. That's actually period, right?
Yep.
But she can't handle that. So I think part of the reason why they were doing that is like, now everybody, we're about to give you $500,000 so you know what kind of questions to ask because she cannot handle tough questions.
I think it's kind of hilarious how this campaign was kind of a microcosm of redistributing wealth to some extent from the bottom to the top, right? Because look, Kamala Harris did take money from billionaire donors, but a way smaller percentage of her donations came from billionaires. She had a lot of small dollar donors. And so like the idea that all this money gets spent on these rich celebrities is hilarious. Like Lady Gaga in Philadelphia, John Bon Jovi in Detroit, Christina Aguilera in Nevada, James Taylor in North Carolina, Katy Perry in Pittsburgh. The singers themselves were not paid a fee or compensated in that way, officials said, but their support staff was. The overall bill for the election eve rallies exceeded the planned budget and is said to have topped $10 million. The cost overruns were partly because the Harris team built an entire rally venue at a park in Pittsburgh, only to be told by the Secret Service that the site could not be properly secured. They had to rush to take it down and rebuild a second venue. Now, there are other major costs, according to records and the campaign officials who spoke to the Times. That includes $111 million in online ads seeking donations. At least $100 million transferred to battleground state parties, $70 million on mailers, nearly $28 million to produce the merchandise that people were ordering. And for all-
I'm just gonna jump in on that one before we lose track of it, Anna. I don't think any of that is bad. You got to spend money on some ads to get more money, and as long as they have positive ROI on it, that's fine. Mailers are how you try to convince some people. You could agree or disagree on the tactics, but that spend is huge, but not necessarily outrageous at all. It's fairly normal categories of spend.
$111 million in online ads seeking donations?
Because what that doesn't tell you is that probably brought in 150 or 200 million in donations.
Sure. I'd like to just reiterate that Donald Trump's YouTube ads asking for donations were so low production but in my opinion, better, right? Because it seems like a normal person. Like he's standing in front of a window. He's backlit, meaning he's dark. There's a bright window behind him. He's dark, and he's like, "We're trying to raise money for my campaign. If you can't do it, don't do it. But if you got a buck or two, it comes across as more authentic." And I'm going to venture to say he didn't spend $111 million to put out those ads to ask for money.
No, of course, and the whole glossy thing that they are so obsessed with is actually deeply counterproductive. I'm just being fair about the type of spend that they're doing.
Okay, and for all the focus on her volunteer program, the campaign spent a significant sum, about $50 million, for paid door-to-door canvassers. I have no problem with that. I mean, canvassing is awful. Okay, it's very difficult. People don't want to hear from you. They don't want you knocking on their door. So canvassers are American heroes and they deserve to be paid. So I have no problem with that.
Yeah, except again, now we go to, is that a category they should spend in? Yes, definitely, okay. I would have loved it if they had enough volunteers like Bernie did, right? And I've canvassed a lot, and after you get, the initial part is awkward, there's no question about that. After you get used to it, there's a part of it that I absolutely love.
Of course you do, Cenk.
Of course I do.
You do. Yeah.
Because you meet real people, you meet non-political people, and I learned a lot from them.
You love to gab, you love to talk.
It's almost like I'm a talk show host. Okay, and so, but God, $50 million is a lot. And what they told us is, don't worry, we got this great ground operation, and it's gonna help us to carry us to victory. Did it? My guess is that a ton of that money was wasted, not on the canvassers themselves, but high up on the organization, and it's proofs in the pudding. It didn't help. It didn't work. So again, not outrageous because that's a thing you should do, but everything they did in extravagant fashion, and it was very inefficient and very ineffective. So they wasted your money in a lot of ways. But one more thing that I want to go back to. Look, guys, two more things actually. We're in this business. Putting together a show, I mean, my God, if they said every time you do an interview, you're gonna get paid $2.5 million to construct a set, we'd be swimming in it. We'd be the richest show in America, right? That's so outrageous. And to them, they're not spending their money, they're spending your money. So they're like, who cares? Throw away $2.5 million. But wait a minute, when Trump goes on Rogan, he got 50 million views on that interview. Do you know how much that's worth? That's worth a ton of money, right? But instead of doing that for free, they're spending $10 million on setting up a rally. I've done rallies. I love rallies because I get to meet you guys and we get to get our message out, but they're very inefficient. They're a decent amount of money for not a lot of return, and anyone that is involved in media or politics knows that. So you spent $10 million on one rally that is barely gonna get into local news because all you did was say boring things in it? It certainly didn't make national news, we never heard about it. And oh my God, I got Queen Latifah and Beyonce's endorsement. Who cares? Who cares, right? So these are the elites that don't know anything about anything. And so they spend like drunk sailors. And remember guys, at every turn, someone in the campaign is taking a percentage. The more they spend, the more those consultants get paid. So that's part of the reason why they're overspending. And finally, to my knowledge, as they're throwing around tens of millions of dollars everywhere that I can see, they didn't do a single ad in progressive media, to my knowledge. I don't know if the other shows got paid and I didn't know, right? It's possible, but progressive media, populist media is where all the undecided voters were. People who were really upset about Gaza, people who were upset about them not delivering for the average workers as much as we thought they could have delivered. And you chose not to go and actually try to win over undecided voters that could have made a difference in the race.
She was too busy going after never Trump Republicans, all 5 of them, Cenk. That's what she was doing. She was gallivanting around town with Liz Cheney, and the whole strategy was to appeal to never Trump Republicans, not to progressives.
Look,
going after the progressives would have been the antithesis. It would have gone against what her campaign strategy was. So congratulations with your campaign strategy. Go ahead and try to appeal to the 5 never Trump Republicans who you think, for whatever reason, hold way more weight in our electoral system than progressive voters do, or working class voters in the Democratic Party do. That's the real issue.
But okay, even if you believed in the Republicans in the suburb strategy, the missing Republicans, they're like Sasquatch. Oh, I hear there's 3 of them in the woods, right? But you believe in that strategy. But wouldn't you also try to get progressives and populists and the people that are undecided in this election? Like, it's so indefensible to not try. So why didn't they try? The reason they didn't try is, well, if we spend money on a progressive show and then we go on there and they ask us tough questions, well, that's counterproductive. We don't want that. We want compliance. And we're not sure, especially left-wing populist shows, are going to give us compliance. So if they're not going to give us compliance and they're not going to do propaganda, they're going to get no money. And that'll show them. Has it shown us? Or maybe has it shown you? Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, all deciding that their base is useless and should not be addressed and should be totally ignored. And instead, they should go get those mythical Sasquatch Republicans in the suburbs. And they went, by the way, Hillary Clinton got 7% of them, Biden got 6%, Kamala Harris got 5%. It was a loser strategy through and through. Final thing I'll say is, I'm so proud they never came to us with any of these offers. So you know why they didn't come to us? Because they knew
hate us?
They knew that there was no way they were going to get a yes, right? So, and yeah, they hate us.
What do you mean they wouldn't get a yes? I wouldn't interview her.
No. The way that this works is first they send the money, then they do the interview.
There's no coordinating what the questions are going to be or anything like that. And by the way, super unethical to take money for an interview. Like, it just.
No, it's okay,
unless you make it clear.
Took the money, not Al Sharpton.
Not in the case of Roland Martin. He says it's for ads. Like, so was the interview an ad? And did you disclose that the interview was meant to be an ad for Kamala Harris?
That gets complicated because the ads, like I said, she pours in, and so does Trump, as to my knowledge, tens of millions, hundreds of millions into CNN, MSNBC, and they also do interviews. So that's the same conflict of interest, right? So ads I view in a different category. But even then you could say, hey, listen, that's a problem, right? As we keep saying, the fact that mainstream media has one of their top advertisers as politicians, as I said earlier in the segment. But the direct money to these outlets and then saying we want you to do an interview with us and with a giant wink wink added, they know the wink wink's not going to work on us. So I am proud of that. And so look, if you're looking for a real interview, you come to the Young Turks with a real audience, right? But if you want fluff propaganda, apparently there's plenty of people who'll take you up on it. Just don't expect to win an election, because you're not going to win an election having people who are already on your side kiss your ass a little more. That's a terrible, ineffective strategy. And you wasted good people's money on it.